Look at how the indictment was announced. We had the acting attorney general standing there. Next to him was the director of the FBI. Next to him was the director of Homeland Security. And if that wasn't enough, we brought the Commerce Secretary and the Treasury Secretary to announce an indictment. In what world do you bring the Commerce Secretary to announce an indictment? So we were signaling that this is going to be a big deal with these trade negotiations. But even if you say, I don't buy any of that, China's perception of this is really what matters. As you said in the lead up, it isn't as if we had arrested an executive of a company in China. We arrested the daughter of the founder of one of the most venerated companies in China. This is like Bill Gates' daughter being arrested. So China is outraged by it. And then this is the real Tom Clancy part that's really intriguing, is that there's an allegation that Huawei and the Chinese National Intelligence Services are integrated together. And that's pretty frightening given what the company does. If that's true, and we don't know if it's true, but if that's true, you can be certain that she knows about that, and she may be in U.S. custody. So make no mistake, when those trade negotiators got on the plane to come to Washington, D.C., one of the things they were told is bring her back. First of all, she's not in U.S. custody yet. She's with the Canadian government. And so Canada right now sort of holds the cards. And China is putting a lot of pressure on Canada. And to give you a sense of the seriousness of this, there's a Canadian citizen who was sentenced to 15 years in prison for drug charges. He was brought out in a one-day trial and resentenced to the death penalty. So the Chinese government is holding a Canadian citizen for the death penalty right now. They're serious about getting her back. President Trump said to Reuters not so long ago that he would intervene if it would help the trade talks. I'm not a lawyer, but the way I understand it is the indictment is handed down by the Justice Department, and the Justice Department reports up effectively to the president. And if you buy into the unity theory of the executive branch, he could in fact do that because the prosecutor has discretion on who he would prosecute and who he wouldn't. But, Neil, it sort of begs the question of why are we doing this? Now, of course, we could be doing this just because we're getting tough on crime, and that's certainly what we're presenting to the public. It could also be, as maybe you were indicating, that it's part of the trade deal. But there's also another piece that's quite intriguing, which is we have to remember what Huawei does. They basically sell the heart and lungs of the telecommunications system. And we are rolling out throughout the world the 5G network. Now, why that's significant is 5G basically takes the intelligence and moves it not out to just your cell phone and your laptop, but to your refrigerator. And if, in fact, the company, Huawei, and the Chinese intelligence services are integrated, we're basically seeing a world where China has moved their intelligence out into all of our devices. And that's frightening. And that raises the question about maybe what's going on here is we're trying to stop that rollout. The United States has already said you're not allowed to put your equipment in the United States. Their markets are Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. But Europe is already now taking a pause and saying, well, maybe we're not going to have them roll out their equipment into Europe. And that, by the way, would delay the 5G rollout in Europe by about 2 years. It's a big deal. And the company has a history of not only selling things to Iran, they sold some HP equipment to Iran, but they have a history of espionage or alleged espionage. And that's something that we need to take seriously. If you look at what happened at Marriott, we've sort of forgotten it. But not too long ago, 500 million customers, their data was hacked in Marriott, of which 350-something million passport numbers were hacked. So this sort of ability to get into our networks is a frightening thing from a U.S. security standpoint. I think this is more about U.S. security than it is about commerce.
That's interesting. I didn't think of that. Professor, thank you very much. Why did I have professors like you when I was in school, explaining things very clearly that even a thick skull like mine could comprehend? Thank you very, very much.
I don't think it's so thick.
Well, you got to see it to believe it. Dave Dodson, Stanford School of Business. Interesting read on that, right? That this might have many more layers to it than we know.